The discussion I want us to have today has to do with money. And I want to take you on a journey about money in a way that no school has taught you before. Because I feel the education system has been manufactured, and I'll use that word. It has been constructed in such a way that intentionally you are not taught about money. All the lessons we learn about how money works and how economies work are from other people. It's not in class. It's those discussions that you feel like around money. But the problem is the even the way our economics is presented, even the way our economics is presented in school is wrong. That's that's the sad part. Even when you're trying to learn about how the economy works, it is wrong. In school, we are taught that inflation is a good thing, that you need inflation in order for the economy to run. And we are taught that deflation is a bad thing. Whereas the truth of the matter is, if I truly want to save, then I need for my money to be worth at least what it is right now in the future, or worth more in the future. And so, Rachel, that's so true. And that's the reason why I think these lives are really important. Because even if you hear me talking about starting a business, even if you hear me talking about Bitcoin, even if you hear me talking about politics, all the things I want you to understand is that all these things are around one central thing, and that's money. Because we wake up every single day, especially once you've gotten to 18, you're trying to think of how do I make money. And we spend 50 or 60 years of our life chasing after money, but we never ask ourselves that question of what is money and how can I be able to make good money. And even after you've learned how to make money, how can you be able to keep the wealth that you're trying to create? And those are discussions that so many people will never have. And when you're having them, you're usually having them with someone who wants to sell you a policy. That's typically what happens. I think over the past 2 3 weeks, I've had people, someone in the supermarket stops me and then they're like, ah, in fact, you're looking for people like you. Can I have your number? No introduction, no nothing, and it's an insurance person. So they want to talk to you just simply about getting their products. That's it. They're just looking for sales. Today or somewhere where that's exactly the same thing. Like someone just comes to you and then to ask you, have you spoken with someone from our company? And I said no, because anyway, no one. So can I have your number? I'll give you a call. They're not interested in having that conversation around money. So I want us to think through, what were you taught about money? And this would be a good place for you to just give me a comment. When was the very first time you started having an understanding of what money is? And this can be from a discussion that hopefully your parents had with you when you were in primary school or in high school. And I want to know what is that they told you about money that you think is affecting you now. Because most of the time, by the way, you'll realize that the way you experienced money when you were young affects the way you treat money right now as you're old. Hi, Triz. So tell me in the comments, please tell me, what was your first experience with money? I'd love to know that, so that we can have this discussion around money. And hopefully, if you do stay here for long, I hope this will be something that helps you and you're able to go forward with a different outlook of what money is, right? So let me know in the comments. I'd love to know in the comments, what was your first experience with money? And in the same breath, what did your parents tell you about money? And how do you think that has affected you as you have grown? Because most of the people here, I know, probably you've already hit your 20s or you're 20 and above. That's typically the kind of people who will stay here for a while. But I would love if you would spend with me the next half hour. Let's talk about money Just be patient enough with this question that I'm asking so that we can actually get to the root cause of why we treat money the way we do and the misconceptions we have about money, because I think that's one of the places where there's a huge disconnect. And you're always wondering why do I treat money like this? It's also because of how you were brought up. So I hope you have gotten the gist of the question. The question is, what did your parents teach you about money? And if you can answer the next part, how do you think that has affected the way you treat money? I'm waiting for your comments. African Currency, nice to have you here. Gilbert, nice to have you here. Quixote, welcome. So we're talking about money today, and we are having this money discussion so that we can get to understand why things are the way they are. And I hope you'll be brave enough just to write your experience, because this is a discussion. Typically, this is a discussion I should be having one on one, but we are in a classroom. We have 10 of us here. Let me know what were you taught about money? Who taught you about money? How did you learn about money? Or you just got out of the womb like this? Hey, I know about money. I know there are people like that, but I'd love to know, what was your experience about money? Let's hear from Ellie. Hi, how are you?
I'm fine, I'm Elvis. Hello.
Hi, welcome.
Hello.
What's your experience about money? I can hear you. You can go ahead and speak.
So,
Hey.
hello.
Hi.
I I can hear see if somebody.
Yeah, I can hear you. I've actually put you up so we can hear you.
How what about man?
The question is, what were you taught about money?
Hello.
What were you taught about
Okay, can you hear me?
I can hear you.
Okay, my first time I learned about money was after high school,
Okay.
and I got to earn a lot of money, which I misused a lot because immediately after high school I earned over 30,000, which was a lot for me. That was my first money.
Mhm.
And my first idea was to buy a very big phone,
Okay.
and which I lost after a few weeks. And now I had to reroute my concentration on money. I had to read a lot of books. I started with Rich Dad, Poor Dad. I read Rich Brother and Poor Brother. Money Psychology, I've read a book called Money Psychology, and that is now what I'm focusing on. I'm trying to get better at knowing money. That's why I'm trying to learn on this platform. Yeah.
Thank you for sharing.
So my main goal is to learn and get to accumulate more and to create a good flow of money, because according to all those books I've learned, money behaves like water,
Okay.
and it's controlled by, if you focus on the water scenario, it's controlled by a bank,
Yeah.
where the river is also controlled by the banks, what river banks.
Okay.
So the banks control the flow of money, the river banks control the flow of water. And the same analogy, where you if you try to put money in one jar for a very long time, it won't be good for consumption at the same time. So the same way, when you put money in a bank for a very long time, it will lose its value.
Yeah.
So the money that you put in after 10 years, instead of growing with that money, it will have lost its value. So that's how I've been learning.
Okay.
Yeah.
So yeah. Okay. So thank you for sharing. I think one of the things I've just noticed about what you've said, I have seen a number of videos just this week about maritime law, and I think just turn this one. And I think that's part of the things that you have talked about, but we'll get to it. I think that's thank you for sharing. Rachel says, I was taught that money was not hard to come by. What I wanted, I got. It affects me up to date. Rachel, do you think that's a good thing or not? I think the very first time I read it differently from actually what you've written. So I want to know whether you think that's a positive thing. So my first experience with earned money was also from high school. So I used to work at Strathmore. I went to Strathmore and did CPAs just after high school. And I used if you've been to Strathmore where they do CPAs and things like that, there are students who work for the school. And as as a start, we were being paid 4,000 shillings a month. Now, honestly, that felt like a lot of money. It's a lot of money because that's 15 or so years ago. So with work, 4,000 bob, you make your money very easily because you come in, you work for about 2 3 hours a day in the evening, then you go back home like that, and you do that 5 6 times a week. The rest of the time you're actually in class would do that. And I remember after a while, one of the lecturers gave me work to be grading her students. So that's something that happens. So you get the marking scheme, you help the teacher, you get paid. We're being paid, I think, 7 shillings. Was it per question? I think it was per question that you mark. So from that, you can earn another 2,000 or 3,000. So in a month, instead of making 4,000, my goodness, I'm making 7,000 shillings. And I haven't gone to campus yet. I had not gone to uni yet. This is just straight from high school. And it's that period before we go to campus. Because at that time when we're going to school, we were doing 1.5 years. You finish school this year, you're going to campus next year and a half. And so that's one of the places where I experienced earned money. And so many people, if you get to that point, because my one of my very first things I would do when I earn money is I would buy a crate of eggs and take home. So that day, payday, people would know at home that because I was living with my parents. So I'd use some of it and they'd know, Momo amelipwa. So I'd go with a crate of egg. And that was really interesting. But that's not the point of all this. But one of the things that so many of us, while we were growing up, our parents used to repeat this: do not waste money. You think making money is easy. I have to work hard so that I make money. That's most parents. I think the only person is probably Rachel, who's the opposite. But that's a thing that our parents used to teach us, that by now, when you find, this is the experience I've had, when you find that you are making money and it is very easy to make that money, you feel like you are doing it wrong. So I'll give you an example. When you're an employee, when you're working for someone, they tell you every month you're earning 30,000, like LV here, you're earning 30,000. So you're working, you come in every single day, you're working from 9 to 5. Every day you're coming in so that on 30th, like today, you get paid your. That's how we have grown up seeing how work works. And so we feel that that's a right way of making money. And because of that way that we have grown up, thinking and viewing money as a reward for time spent doing a task, when you find you have a task to do and it is not difficult for you to do it, we feel that we should value it by the amount of time that we spend solving that problem. So, what does that mean? That means that if I am, as a photographer, if I can be able to do your job and do your job in 1 hour, I feel that from this analogy, I feel that I should charge you for that 1 hour. But the thing I want us to learn, hopefully, as we finish this, is that money is not a byproduct of time spent, but money is a byproduct of value provided. So if you're able to provide transformation, if you're able to provide people with value instantly, you should be able to make your money instantly. Okay? So, for instance, if I am supposed to go do That's a good one as well, LV. LV says the way I grew up interacting with money was like a reward. Yes, that's typically how we've treated money, but it's a tool. Yeah. So now, if for instance I go and do a photo for a company like Coca-Cola, I go do a photo shoot for Coca-Cola. The value that I have provided them is not a picture. That's not the value I have provided them. I have provided them an opportunity to be able to go and make sales out of that picture. That picture is an embodiment of their brand and a representation of who they are as a brand. Now, Coke is a multi-billion dollar brand. Okay. So if I take a photo for them, what I'm actually, if I do a good photo, what will that do to their sales? Will it increase their sales by 10,000 or by 20,000 or by 30,000, or it will increase their sales by millions? That's exactly what you need to be thinking about money. It's about the value that you have provided to that particular brand. And so once you start treating money as an exchange of value, then the way you price things will completely change. This has been probably one of the biggest unlocks for me, because when I started photography, I'd actually tell people we are spending 3 hours, we are spending this amount of time. And that was my justification for the prices that I had. But today I realize that the experience that you have and the time spent that you have and the professionalism that we have and the end product that we are going to provide you, that's what you're paying for. You're paying for the fact that once you see the kind of work that we do, it will put a smile on your face, enable you to remember that day with a particular emotion attached to it. That is what you need to unlock. And when you do that, then if you're in business, hi Hilda, and it's been a while to seeing you here. So then in business, what you now start to do is when people come to you and they ask you, how much do you charge for this? It has nothing to do with how much time they're going to spend with you. Okay? That's the truth. So when I'm doing my crypto discussions with people, I tell them my package is $100. $100 is a lot of money. True, it's a lot of money, but that's what I have put value on, that time that you're spending with me. I know I shouldn't be charging for time spent. I'm charging for value, but anyone who sees that value, they'll look and say, that $100 is worth spending. If they don't see the value, then the problem is on me, that I have not shown them how valuable it is, or they simply can't afford me, so they are not my client. And we'll not have that discussion all through and through. But even more than that, when it comes to money, the way we have grown with money, we have been taught that you go work. Once you have worked, this is something that we do even in our financial classes. We say 50% spend on your needs, 30% spend on your wants, 20% you save. That's what we typically tell people. And while that is not bad advice per se, you should be saving, but the way to save must change, right? Because if today you went and put your 20% in the bank is paying you less than 3% if you're lucky in a savings account, right? If you fix it, then they'll tell you we'll give you around 5% if you fix it, right? But the interest rate that you're getting at the end of the period, whether 3 months, 6 months, or a year, whatever period it is, it does not factor in what is known as time value for money. Because once you earn money today, you're hoping that if I put 20% aside, it will enable me to do something more in the future, that it will enable me to take care of a future expense that I may be having. But what happens? If you put it in the bank, first of all, inflation is eating it very quickly. But secondly, the moment you try and remove it, you have charges just on removing it. If you put it in a stock, you have no control of what the stock is going to do. The stock is either going up or going down, and you have no control over it. In fact, I was just looking at the stock for KCB, and in the past 12 months, it's been going down until now. COP is the second largest bank in terms of market capitalization. And I have an idea the reason why KCB has gone down is probably because of foreign investors selling the stock. Not that the stock is not good enough, but foreign investors have done a huge sale over the past 12. So if you had invested in KCB, for instance, at this like 12 months ago, by now your money is worth almost half of what you put in. So now you have to think of, so what do I do? Because if your money is losing value very quickly, then it incentivizes you to spend it now when it is worth the most it can. And that's one of the reasons why you hear that saying of one bird in the hand is worth two in the bush. It's around this, the value of money. If your money is worth more today than it is going to be worth tomorrow, logically speaking, I need to spend it today and I cannot save. And there is no point of saving because your money is worth less. And I'm really trying to take it slowly by slowly so that those gears in your head can start turning about money. One of the biggest reasons why our savings are low is because if I put the money there, it's going to be less by the end of the year. Look at it like that. It's going to be less by the end of the year. You may have put in 10,000 every month and it's 120,000 at the end of the year, but how much that 120,000 can be able to buy is less than what it could have been able to buy if you were spending 10,000 every month. That's a reality that we live in, not just in Kenya, but all across the globe. Money is losing value very quickly. And these are the things that we'll never hear about in news. You'll never be taught about in schools, but it's called a low time preference. So a low time preference, and I hope I'll be putting this right because this is really important for people to hear. The time preference of money has to do with, is it more profitable for you to spend? Let me get it right. Just 1 second, because I don't want to misguide you by mixing the two terms. But it's an economic principle called time preference for money. And I'm just putting on my laptop so that I can actually give you the correct. But there's a economics principle around whether, when you're making that decision, to either make the decision of spending money now or saving it to spend it in the future. And this has to do with how much more is your currency worth in the future, or how much less is it going to be worth. And it's really important that you get this point, because that's the reason why so many of us, when we make money, we want to spend it immediately. Because if I don't spend it now, then in the future it will be worth nothing. Yeah? So you think of it, okay. So now, if you think about it, if you make money today, right? If you make money today and you go to the supermarket and you find a kilo of sugar is 200 shillings, right? You find a kilo of sugar is 200 shillings. But you know the trend of how sugar has been, because last month sugar was 180. So you ask yourself this question, because you have the money with you. Should I put my money aside so that I buy sugar next month when I need it, when this batch is over? Or should I buy more sugar now so that next month I don't need to buy sugar? And I'm trying to take you through that scenario because that is exactly what our money is doing right now. If you make the decision of buying more sugar than you need now and spending that money now, instead of having to put it aside, because you know that next month sugar is going to be at 210 or 220. If you're having to make that decision, then you have a high time preference. Anyone who has a high time preference, and I'm just reading from the definition because I opened it up, they're focused on their well-being in the present because they are a today person. That's typically what our money is making us do right now. Why? Because one of the decisions that now, like if you have a vehicle, you're going to look at, should I, like on 13th, before the prices change, you ask yourself, should I put a full tank now or I wait for the prices to come down? Are the prices going to come down? Most likely not. So you tell yourself, let me just spend right now at a lesser point, and it feels like a saving because in future you'll not spend again. That's typically what our currency is doing and what our money is doing, because putting your money aside is a worse decision. It's an illogical decision because it will be worth less tomorrow. And so you need a way where you can be able to put money aside, use just only what you need, and then the money that you have put aside either makes you money or just stays at the same value for a long time. And honestly, that is a perfect thing that you can be able to, even without interest, even without putting it into a yield, because that's another problem on its own, needs a whole video on its own. If you can be able to just set your 1,000 shillings on the side, and tomorrow it helps you buy more than it was able to buy today, that would be the perfect situation. It would be the perfect situation that if you have a house, for instance, that you pay rent, that you would be paying less in rent next year. How would that sound like? It will actually incentivize you to make as much money now because you know your expenses are going to go down. And I really want you to be able to think of how outlandish that seems. It doesn't seem logical that next year you'd be spending less than you're spending. And the problem is, it's because of the current financial system and the way it runs that it doesn't seem logical that you could ever pay less in terms of bill. Think of it this way. If you were buying your Samsung S24, which is yet to come out, if you were purchasing that 6 months from now, would it be more money that you need to chuck than the S23? The logical answer is yes, you're going to pay more. When the iPhone 15 has just come out, right now it's being sold, the Pro Max at over 300,000. These others are being sold at 180,000. But what if the iPhone 16 would cost you less than the iPhone 15? What would need to happen in order for that to occur? Think about that question, because that's a very loaded question for you to think about. So, the way money works, and I'm taking you to economics, and I hope to make this as simple as possible. The way money works is there's always supply of money and there's always demand for money. Okay? Money is simply a tool that has supply and it has demand. Who creates demand for money? You need money, so you demand for money. That's the reason why you go to work. That's the reason why you have a business, because you have a need for money. You create demand. Importers create demand. Exporters create demand for money. Okay? So who supplies money? Supply of money in our current financial system is created by two organizations. One is the government and two is the bank. And I'll give you, JR, just we're going slowly so that you can get where we are going. Okay? So this is how the banks create money. Okay? So we have a concept in banking known as fractional reserve bank. What that means is, for every deposit that the bank receives, it needs to keep a portion of that money in the bank in hard cash, and then it can be able to use the rest for its own use. Okay? Fractional reserve banking started recently. And I'm saying recently very loosely. Because what used to happen, and this is the way money is supposed to work, what used to happen is we had gold as currency. And one of the biggest advantages of gold, we're coming back to fractional reserve banking, please remind me. One of the biggest advantages of gold is that gold is hard to obtain. Every money or currency that exists must be hard to obtain. If money is easy to obtain, then it loses its worth. Okay? So in order to get gold in the earlier times, you'd actually need to go to a mine, you'd need to dig in the ground, you would need to spend man hours just trying to find enough gold, and you're finding gold in its natural format. So you have no control over how pure it is. Once you have extracted it, remember, this is taking you time, this is taking you resources. If it is people you're paying, if it is people you're feeding, all we are doing is trying to get gold. And once we have gotten the gold, we would now go to a specialized person who would melt this gold so that it becomes pure, and now you'd have pure gold to be able to go around with and do trade, because gold's worth is around the first thing. It's rare to find, it's difficult to find, and so we can be able to attach value to it. Something that is easy to get has little value. Just the same way in relationships, if you are an easy to find girl, you have less value. But that's not the point of all this. Let's get back to money. So now, one of the biggest advantages of gold was the fact that it could hold its value. And over time, the inflation of gold has been less than 2% all through. Because again, after a while, it started to become a controlled thing, and you could always predict the supply of gold. Okay. But right now, it's a bit difficult. I think, was it in Ghana just recently? Someone discovered this huge ore of gold. In Uganda, someone discovered a gold mine worth $8 trillion. And the whole supply of gold is 12 trillion. So some of these things are changing. But one of the biggest disadvantages that gold had was that it lacked a property called scalability of a space. So scalability of a space means that something can be transported easily from one place to another. In order to transport gold, you would need guards, of course. You would need to have as many donkeys and horses as possible. And there was that tedious nature of you're moving gold from one place to another. So then what would happen is people discovered that we don't really need to carry gold around. So what would they do? They would actually gather around someone who was trusted. And I'm giving you the history of banking. They'd find someone in their village who was trusted, and then everyone would go and deposit gold at that particular place. And so people would come say, Mumo is a trusted guy. I hope you can trust this guy. So Mumo is the guy who keeps your gold. It is kept safe. He has guards in one place. That means that as a trader, you do not have to keep on carrying gold. You can just take it to this guy, and then he writes on a piece of paper and says, Eddie has given me 10 bars of gold, and then gives you that paper that says 10 bars of gold. In his records, he says, Eddie has given me 10 bars of gold. I've given him the paper that says 10 bars of gold. He's gone. So he can actually go and trade with anyone and get goods worth 10 bars of gold. And that person that he has sold to, even if he has sold and done business with 10 different people, each of them can come with different papers that I have signed that I had given to Eddie. And Jamu says, okay, I sold to Eddie things worth 2 bars of gold. So I get my paper back. I go into my vault. I give you your 2 bars of gold, and you go away. Okay. That's how banking worked. So now, in terms of trade, you wouldn't need to carry physical gold. You could actually carry paper, which was easily scalable, saleable over space because it could be easily carried. So you had to spend less. Now, all the protection that you are doing is protecting this paper that you are carrying, because carrying this paper is like carrying gold. But then something happened. These trusted people were paid based on how much they had helped with trade. So you'd come and let's say you've given me 100 bars of gold and my fee is 1%. So you'd come with 101 bars of gold, and that's normal business. And the cost of doing business with me was that 1%. Okay. But then these people who had been trusted to be custodians started getting greedy, and they would ask themselves, right now, I have 10,000 bars of gold that I'm holding right now, and these people are not coming anytime soon. What if I wrote down another piece of paper and I was able to give it to someone and they would still pay me even though this paper did not correspond to any of the gold I had? That, in truth, is the start of banking. So this nature of selling money started like that. You don't have it in stock, but you are creating it. And so after a while, of course, uh, I don't want to bore you with a lot of details, but of course, with time, we moved specifically to just paper-based money. And after the First World War, England, because that's where banking actually started, England now declared it illegal for people to keep gold bars in their homes, and they had to actually bring it to the Bank of England and get paper. Okay. So that's the reason why even right now getting gold is usually very difficult. It's highly regulated. Most of the gold was confiscated by the government and surrendered to the government in exchange for paper money. But then between 1913 and now in the US up to 1971, you would always give out this paper money corresponding to gold that was. And in 1971, it was was it Ronald Reagan or whoever it was Reagan, who actually came in and said, you know what, guys, we are tired of this gold. Now trust us. Trust us that whatever paper you get, we will always make sure that you get value. But then the thing that changed is they do not need to hold corresponding gold in order to create money. So from 1971 until today, banks can be able to create money. And this is how they create money. And we've come back to fractional reserve banking. This is a concept that if I receive a million bob, there's a portion of it I have to keep the same way they used to keep gold. There's a portion of this money that I have to keep. So typically it was 10%. Of course, it started at 100%. It kept being reduced over time until around 2018, 2019, when it was still 10%. In the US now it's 0%. Okay. And that has a very big effect on supply of money because that's where we are going. So fractional reserve banking requires that I keep a portion of the money that you give me in my vault. So you come to the Bank of Momo and you give him a million bob. And on your account, and even if we are writing on paper on your account, it says you own a million shillings. That's what you've given me. And whenever you come to me, I have to give you a million. Okay? But you're not coming right now. You know, you're saving, you're a good guy, you're putting it in an MMF. That's what you're doing. You know, you think about the future. That's what you're doing. So what I do is even before you leave the bank, we have Ken who has just joined us. He comes to the Bank of Momo and he says, Momo, by the way, I want to buy a nice car, not too many miles on it, not too many kilometers on it, and it's only costing 900,000. So we come and we look at our records. How much money do we have? 100,000 I can't touch, but I have 900,000 here. So I give you 900,000. This is not my money. This is someone else's money that I've just given you, but I've given it to you as a loan. I've not given you a grant. I've given you a loan. And I've told you, I'm giving you 900,000. I want you to pay me this percentage at the end of the year. Let's say even 10%. So at the end of the year, I expect 900,000 plus my 10%. See how banks create money? So now the person that we are going to pay for this vehicle has an account at Bank of Momo. It can be a different branch. We don't care. But it's still us. We are the guys who own every single bank. So we take this 900,000 and we transfer it to the seller of your car. So you want to buy a 900K car. You want the car. Us, we'll just deal with your seller and you get the car. So now the second deposit that has been done is treated as a new deposit. So right now in my bank, I have $1 million bob that I received that I've actually given out, but in my books, I have $1 million bob. And by just doing that one transaction, I've created 900,000 shillings out of just by giving out that loan. Just by that, because it goes into that person's account. And now on our books, we have 1 million from customer one who had his savings. And then we have 900,000 that comes from this guy selling his car. But since we are not stopping there, as a bank, we are not stopping there. Now we have a new deposit of 900,000. So we take our 10% and we put it to the side. Remember, now we've saved 190,000. That we are not touching. But we have a new deposit of 810,000. So now this 810,000, this guy says, okay, I need to be able to buy another vehicle from Japan. So this 810,000, I'm using it to transfer to Japan. In Japan, by the way, we also have another branch of the Bank of Momo. And so this 810,000 is sent to Japan. And then again, we count that as a new deposit. So we keep on doing that over and over and over again. And the problem is, anytime you add to the supply of money and create money out of thin air, the supply of money must meet all the demand for money. If you are awake in your economics class and you know that when supply increases and demand remains the same, the price comes down. Anytime you go and you find there are so many onions that have come in, it is a seasons of onions. What happens to the price of onions? It goes down because people are still eating the same number of onions every day. So that's what happens with money. Anytime you increase the supply of money very quickly, the value of that money goes down because the demand is still the same or it is growing at a slower rate than the supply of money. So now take our example, and then you have 0% fractional reserve. And then you are living in a country where every single time we have mobile loans as well. We have easy credit. This process is called the velocity of money. The amount of time it takes for your money supply to grow is called velocity of money. The lower the velocity of money, the more your money can retain its value. But the higher the velocity of money, the less amount of power it has to retain its value. So my question is this: in the country that we live in right now and the velocity of money that we have, because remember, we have a product by NCB and KCB called Fuliza. It is an overdraft facility, but remember, it is creating supply of money. Almost all Safaricom customers are on Fuliza. You have Mshwari, you have KCB MPESA, you have every single bank has a mobile loan facility, and you haven't touched even the digital lenders. All these people in the same economy. And so what people do is that they borrow from here to pay this loan, and then they take money from here to pay this loan, and then here to pay this one, and there's that gymnastics of money. So the supply of money keeps on going up because there is not enough value being created for this demand to actually be satiated. Our salaries don't go up as quickly as our inflation. unless you're the president, where you are cushioned against. But that's a discussion for another. So even when you put money, and I know someone had asked that question about putting money in a money market fund or putting money in commodities like gold, silver, oil, and wheat. The problem is supply of money. That's where the issue is. Supply of money. If the supply of money is always going up, and the velocity of that money, how easy that money is to be created, then it makes a problem for you and your pocket. So now what do you need to do? You need to find a way where you will be able to put your money in a place where either the supply of money is going down, because demand is always going up, but the supply of money is going down so that the value of the money is going, okay? That's really important for you to understand. And if you can get that, you will create wealth all through your life, because then you can be able to hear the discussion of where can I put my money in a money that has fixed supply, because that now brings me to the most difficult money to create. Remember, in our discussions about gold, we talked about the fact that you had to spend resources, you had to spend time in order to just get. But now, Samson, there exists a money, there exists a currency where you can be able to spend as much time and resources before you can be able to just get a portion of it. That's the truth. So if you're with me so far, then let me introduce you to what Bitcoin is, because I know you've probably heard about it before, but this is a true definition of it. You have money that is difficult to create. In order to be able to create a Bitcoin right now, you need a huge farm of computers running 24/7 trying to solve mathematical equations in order to get the opportunity, the chance, just to be able to create Bitcoin. So this is what happens over a period of time, and on average it's around 10 minutes. Allow me to just use 10 minutes and not go into a lot of details. But every 10 minutes, someone around the world is given some Bitcoin as a reward for solving these computations, okay? And I'm trying to keep it as simple as possible so that you can get. So first of all, this reward that they are getting for the hard work is based on how fast can you complete your assignment. This is your assignment, 15 questions, and I'm simplifying it here. 15 questions for you to answer. Start answering. So you have a discussion group that is going on there in China. You have another one in the US, you have another one here in Kenya, you have another one in Nigeria. All these people have been given the same test, and they've been told you need to solve this within the next 10 minutes. Okay? So now, each of these people, wherever they are, everyone sits down and they're like, so what is the question to answer number one? And then that leads to question number two and number three. And whoever has finished first raises their hand and says, I have finished solving the question. So now everyone else looks at your answers, because you see, each of us are trying to answer it. So I'll come answer your questions, Kevin. Let me finish this analogy. So each of us has answered the question. I may be number one, you're number two. This other person is number three in answering. So I raise my hand first. I have answered the question. So everyone comes and looks through my work, because the answer is very simple. The questions are the ones that are hard. Verifying that my questions are right is very easy. So now once they verified that I am correct, I'm given, here is your reward. So we start again. Next question, we do again. Okay? So first of all, and Kevin, I'm coming to your question. There is a hard limit, and a hard limit means there is no room for expansion. So the hard limit on the supply of Bitcoin is 21 million Bitcoin, okay? But secondly, every single Bitcoin can be divided into units that are called Satoshis. One Bitcoin in it has 100 million Satoshis, okay? So that's the same way that if you had 1 shilling, if you're old enough, then you know we used to have 5 cents and 10 cents. And if you're really old enough, they used to be 1 cent. But that's the same concept, that 1 unit of the money can be subdivided. And the way Bitcoin has been created is that, yes, you have the one full unit, which is 1 Bitcoin, currently at around $27,000, but it can be divided into 100 million units called Satoshis. Okay? So now, every single person who runs what is known as a Bitcoin mining facility, what that means is that they have set up specialized computers whose work is to audit the Bitcoin network and the transactions that have just happened. And by auditing all the transactions that have happened, they end up verifying that all these transactions, the transactions that are legit and the ones that are not, and making sure that all of them are certified before they can be added onto the record of transactions already happened, which is now called the blockchain. Okay? So any transactions of people sending Bitcoin to each other is raised, and I can say Mumo is sending Daphne. Daphne, nice to see you here. Mumo is sending Daphne money, and then after I've sent her money, I can't again use the same balance that I have and send Kevin money as well, of the same money that I have. So what the miners basically do is that they check, who did Mumo send money first to? And then they look at my box of wealth, and it has been deducted this amount that I've sent to Daphne, and then that amount now gets into her wallet and she has received that money. And that is the first transaction. Any other attempts to use the same money in my wallet, all of them are declared illegal and they are invalid. You cannot be able to use that money again. Okay? So now, every single miner is an auditor. That's one thing I need you to get. But each one of them is working to be able to be the one to solve, that means to certify the transactions that have happened, and then get paid. That's a one way of creating Bitcoin. There is no other way of creating Bitcoin. There's only one way. So this is different from what a treasury can do, where a treasury guy can just sit and say, we are adding $1 billion into money supply. No one can sit and say we are adding onto the money supply. So when that is fixed, the fact that money is fixed in supply, then that tells you the more people who start using this particular currency, the more demand will go into that particular currency. And why is it important for people to understand this? Because we are so used to our money being worth less in the future that having a money that will be worth more in the future seems illogical. It feels like it is not possible that tomorrow I can be spending less to do the work that I'm doing now. It seems illogical. But secondly, now, once you understand how Bitcoin is made, then for you, the thing is, can I be able to buy Bitcoin so that in the next 4 or 5 years, I will have more wealth than is imaginable? That's just one benefit, okay? And go with me slowly here. That is just one benefit, that your money in Kenya shillings or in dollars, denominated in dollars, will be worth more in the future, because getting that Bitcoin will get harder and harder as time goes by. In 2012, 1 Bitcoin was around $1. 1 Bitcoin, $1. I wish I knew about Bitcoin then. I'd be the richest guy in this country. But right now, 1 Bitcoin is $27,000. So the people who bought Bitcoin and kept it, because that's the other disease that people have, they want to spend their money now because we are used to having a high time preference. We just think of now. We don't think of what will we leave our children and our children's children. We don't think about that because life feels like it is too short. But you're able, this is what I tell people, put 5% on the side, don't touch it. Hata kukue na nini, don't touch it. You will thank yourself in 5 years, in 10 years time. For that, the first advantage is the fact that because all currencies currently are inflationary in nature, that means that their supply is going to get higher with time. And that also means that the value of their money will keep on reducing. Then that means if you are holding something that is worth more now, worth less now, in the future it will be worth more. That's one advantage. But the second advantage of Bitcoin is where we are going. In a very short time, and I'm trying to be as optimistic as possible, in a very short time, here in Kenya, you will start seeing people quoting their prices in dollars. I have seen it in a few places, but it's not very common. But you will start seeing people quote their things in dollars. And there's a huge reason for that. Our Kenya shilling is depreciating in value so quickly that people are starting to think, wait, I can't price my things in Kenya shillings anymore because the amount of money that I spent is increasing with time. So I need to price it in a different currency so that I can save a little. And once that happens, because that's the first step, putting money in dollars is just a first step. Because then people are realizing, by the way, the local currency that you have has an issue, so we are putting it in a different currency. But then people will also realize that putting your money in dollars is not the solution, because still the US dollar is inflationary in nature. And their inflation, the worst part is that their inflation is shared by every single country because they have made the US dollar the world reserve currency. So we are pricing all our things in dollars, and when they increase, because they're the only people who have the power to create dollars, they pass us the inflation. We are an end user of the dollar, they are a producer. So that's where we are going. And once people realize that the dollar is not a solution, so then they'll now come to Bitcoin. Because you'll realize, and I wish I had some of those stats just with me. Someone was comparing the amount or the number of Bitcoin it would take to buy an iPhone. And they did from iPhone 4 to the current one. And from iPhone 4, it was, I think, 100 and something Bitcoin just for one iPhone. And right now, it's 0 point something, right? So that's why I asked that question. If it is possible that tomorrow we can spend less than we are spending today. So now, next year, when the iPhone 16 shows up, what will happen? Its value in Bitcoin will be less than it is right now. Why? Because you're finally holding money that the longer you hold it, the less of it you have to spend in the future. So in our case, remember, we were being incentivized to spend because things tomorrow will be more expensive. But in the Bitcoin world, what we are being incentivized to do is to put our Bitcoin on the side and not spend it, because tomorrow it will be worth more just because of its economics. And I've taken quite a while just to be able to get you here so that you can understand why it is the way it is. Because next year, the price of Bitcoin, or the value of Bitcoin, will have gone up. And the year after that, it will have gone up even more. And so in 5-10 years time, owning one Bitcoin will be a wonder, because it will probably be at $100,000 or $200,000. And of course, we are not even talking about how many Kenya shillings it will be for $1. And that's the place where we are going. People will logically, and the reason I've taken so much time just to take you through that is so that in your mind it can start making sense. Because the first time you hear it, you'll be like, no, that's not possible. Because all the information you have been fed thus far is by people who have an agenda against moving your money out of the current financial system. Because the people who control this current financial system don't want money leaving the system. Because the more it stays in their system, the more they are able to control how you spend your money. Because that's the world we are going to. I don't know if we understand how much of a danger having digital money issued by the government is to us. There was a proposal last year, and this proposal was around what is known as a central bank digital currency. In simple terms, what that means is the government, that's the phone number if anyone needs to buy health supplements. That's the phone number. Uh, I'm answering the question Seb has asked here. So the government is pushing for people to get rid of physical cash. Now, in our country, I know how much we love MPESA. But the beauty of MPESA is the ability for you to turn that digital money back to physical money. Remember, as we were starting off, we did a discussion around why paper money was started, because gold was hard to move around. And imagine now, even paper is difficult to move around, that now we are carrying just our phones and an SMS. So as a country, by the way, this is something I need to caution you about. As a country, we are amongst the countries that have the highest risk of having CBDCs, central bank digital currencies, because we are so used to M-Pesa that when the government finally says, now we are not doing M-Pesa anymore, because that's what they'll need to do. We are not doing M-Pesa anymore. We are not allowing you to carry cash. All we are doing is digital money. And digital money you have to open an account with the central bank. And so once you open that account with the central bank, then all your money is going through that number. So you can never say, oh, I didn't make enough money, so my returns are zero. That's where people are hiding now, in mobile money. And you've seen the government trying to go behind the back and trying to start accessing people's M-Pesa statements. But now, when the central bank digital currency comes in, they will not need to go behind your back to know how much money you make, because there's no more money going through banks, so you're going through M-Pesa, so you're going through where it is all going through your ID number. So they'll come and say, ID number 123456. This is the amount of money that you made in the year. And imagine now, if they will not even bother asking you to do returns. What for? They have all the records. They don't even need to struggle to get their money if they want. So the government can come in and say, tax is 15% on all the transactions that you're doing. This is what we are doing. So when money hits your ID number like this, they take their 15%. See, they've said that's a tax. And there's nothing you can do. Okay? And if they want you to spend the money, they can even tell you, if you save more than 100,000, anything above that expires in 5 months. These are rules they can put in, because this is government programmable money. This is the world we are going to. And so what do you need to do as a person? Because I know some of the information that I've been giving you, some of it seems like it's just going over your head. Some of it, I understand. So what I'll do is, this particular video, I'll actually put it up on YouTube. Hopefully you can go there and watch it as well, so that you rethink of the whole thing that we've talked about. But I want you to be able to do this. If you have the opportunity of owning land, physical land, get a title deed for that land. And I'll not say more about that. Secondly, if you have the opportunity and the money, at least to be able to put aside a portion of your income in Bitcoin, put it aside. Not in an exchange, please. You put it aside and put it in your own wallet, a Bitcoin wallet. You can buy on an exchange, then move it to a wallet. Buy it on an exchange, move it to a wallet. Just do that. It can be little money. It doesn't have to be a lot of money, believe me. But if you can be able to put aside at least $3,000 in Bitcoin and keep it there for the rest of the next 10 years, and don't touch it. No matter where you see prices go, you will be very rich. Your children will be very rich. your great-grandchildren, all of them will never lack for anything. That's what I want to leave you with. I don't want to go into too many details on why that is going to happen. Owning one Bitcoin will become very difficult in the next 10 years. Government control of finances is going to be ramped up in the next 5 to 10 years, because right now you see the taxes and all those things that we are going through right now. All these things are just a precursor to government control of finances. That's the truth. They're just testing. They get us on our knees. That's a thing that the government wants to do. And it's not just our government, by the way. Don't think this is just a Kenyan thing. No, this is a worldwide thing that they want to do. They want to make sure that people are not earning. You see what you're earning? They want to chip it and chip on it and bite on it and take a huge chunk out of it so that you don't have the power to create anything. And then all you'll now have to do is go to the government and say, government, can you help us? Because we don't have anything. They will want to make us rely on them. Goodness, okay. Miracle. They will want us to rely on them 100%. That's a world we are going to. Because then we'll be told, okay, if you want to, remember we have digital IDs that is about to come, my friend. If you can refuse it the same way we refuse to do my number, the better for you. That's what I'll say. That's what I'll tell you for free. Digital IDs is a worldwide thing that they're trying to do. Give you one identity, and then that one identity, we attach everything on it about you. Having decentralized information, at first it seems like an inconvenience. You know the way NHIF is on its own, NSSF is on its own, this other service is on its own. We don't want everything on one platform. Please. We don't need it on one platform. No. And not controlled by a government. Because the more we depend on one particular thing controlled by the government, then that means that they can just close the tap on your supply of anything. And that's it. If they attach your KRA pin to your NSF, to your NHIF, to your salary, to what other service are you looking for? All those things are just put in one place. And then they can say, oh, this is the guy mwenye anashinda akiongea pale TikTok, talking about me. This is the guy mwenye anashinda akiongea TikTok. Finya hiyo. So you have no access to anything. We live right now at the mercy of the government. All we do every day is hoping that the government can just do right by us, because their objectives and yours are completely on the opposite side. Look at it every single day. Your objective and the objective of the government are complete polar opposites. And it is by that nature that you have to think of yourself and think of, how can I be able to be independent of the government? And so I implore you, even if you're not going to buy Bitcoin today, just promise me this, that you will take time to go on YouTube, search for a guy called Michael Saylor, and just listen to him talk for an hour. Because I've talked to you for over an hour and you're probably not yet convinced, just go and listen to that guy. Because what he has done is, every single day of the week, he borrows money, USD, so that he can go and buy Bitcoin. And that is money even borrowed from banks where he'll pay interest. But he's like, I'd rather borrow money even against all the shares that I have in this company so that I can be able to go and buy Bitcoin. Ask yourself, what has he seen that you haven't seen yet? Listen to his talks, listen to the interviews that he's done, and I promise you, before this weekend is over, you will be buying Bitcoin. Because finally you'll understand what governments want. Governments want to control you. The more they can milk you, the better. The people who think that the governments love them are the same people who think that strippers love them. That's where I'm ending it today. 1.5 hours. I hope all that information you have been able to get. And I'm thankful that you guys took time to be with me, even though I've not seen any gifts. I know the gift is your liberation. I hope that God blesses your pockets so that you can bless my pockets as well. Because of all the information I've given you today, that's what I hope for you. That's what I hope for you. That you can be able to create wealth because there isn't a lot of time left.